What the So I haven't mentioned this yet, but I am taking summer school. I have a bunch of elective courses that I need to get out of the way. So I thought, you know what? Now that I'm stuck at home, excellent time to do so. I'm taking film critique and modes of reasoning. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. This week is reading week. So I sat myself down and thunk to myself, why not take this week to read an absolute literary masterpiece? What have I gotten myself into? So this book series was written as Twilight fanfiction. We're off to a very good start here. Now, I'm currently reading The Lord of the Rings. It's been a while. It's a hard book to read. But you know what? That's a piece of trash. Nobody cares about The Lord of the Rings. It's garbage. What we really care about is 50 Shades of frickin' Grey. What? So anyways, today's Monday, June 22nd, one day after my birthday. And it's time to devour this book series!
I've never watched the 50 Shades of Grey movies. Like, I'm a child of Jesus, okay? I don't engage in that deplorable behavior. Okay, who the hell do you think I am? So I'm really going into this blind. I mean, I have a vague idea that this is all nasty, this is making me uncomfortable type of content. Well, that was okay. How do I even begin to explain this? Good morning, everybody. I have like another 180 pages to read today. Yesterday was a riveting day. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's really fun. It was really enjoyable. The book's great. 50 Shades Darker, 50 Shades Freed, 50 Shades STD, 50 Shades HIV. In the span of, I think, 20 pages, they've done it twice. I have no words. It's time for more Grey. I think there's like 180 pages left, so we'll get that done in like 3 hours or so, and then we'll sit down and talk our feelings out about this mess. So yeah, I'm gonna start this reading on the toilet. Why do writers like to describe speech as a growl? How do you growl something? Especially something like that. Okay, so I finished the first book. Let's have a little chit chat. I'm gonna give you a summary of everything that happened, and then I'll give you an analysis. So the story opens, Anastasia's living in Seattle with her best friend Kate. Kate is a journalist for their university, and she has to interview and write an article on the very rich and famous Mr. Grey. But oh no, Kate has corona and she's sick, so she can't go and interview Mr. Grey. So Anastasia's all like, that's okay, I'll go. So she goes, and the interview is extremely awkward. Christian Grey is super hot, sexy, and handsome, and Anastasia's got 5 left feet. She's extremely intimidated by Christian Grey, but she's also heavily turned on. The interview ends, they both go their separate ways. Anastasia's heavily infatuated with Christian Grey, and she's doing that thing where she's trying to convince herself that she's not. Now that's until Christian Grey shows up at Anastasia's retail job and gives her his business card. Anastasia's obviously over the moon. Anyways, a couple days later, Kate, Anastasia's best friend, who also has corona, wants Anastasia to set up a photo shoot with Christian so that she can get a photo of Christian for the article she's writing on him. So they do that. They get their pictures of Christian, and Christian asks Anastasia out for coffee. So they have their little coffee date. Anastasia's leaving the coffee shop when she almost gets killed by a rogue cyclist. But not to worry, because Christian lunges forward and saves her from the cyclist. And they have this really awkward moment where Anastasia's in his arms and she's all like, kiss me. And he's like, no, I'm not the man for you. And then they're broken up even though they were never really together, and it's only page 20 in the book. So later that day, Anna's frustrated because she's just lost the love of her life. So she goes to the bar to get drunk with some friends. She picks up her phone and decides to drunk dial Christian Grey, who's all like, I can smell your blood alcohol levels through the phone. So he jumps in his car, drives over to the bar that she's at, takes her back to his apartment, where she's all like, okay, I'll admit it, you're really hot and I want you in my pants. So when they're in the elevator going up to his apartment,
They make out for like 0.2 seconds before the elevator stops on another floor and a bunch of people come in. So anyways, Anna recovers from her drunken state. She wakes up in Christian's apartment and goes home. No funny business yet, but that's enough to make Anastasia intrigued. So she calls up Christian again to try to discuss the possibility of a relationship. Now with this, Christian says that he doesn't do relationships. You know, he's a different kind of man. He doesn't do hearts and flowers. Turns out, hitting people turns him on, and he's really into BDSM. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's. He continues, however, because he introduces the concept of a submissive and dominant relationship and presents her with a contract outlining her roles as a submissive, you know, and what she's supposed to eat, how she's supposed to dress, how many times a week she's supposed to work out. What? Quick note, if anybody ever tells me what the hell I'm supposed to eat, I'm sorry, but I'm decking you in the face. But anyways, back to the story. So Anastasia's like, okay, this is all good and fun, but I'm a virgin. Now at this revelation of sorts, Christian goes, aha, we can rectify this situation. So they do. And they do it. Yeah. So once Anna's situation is rectified, they get down to business, you know. Christian gives Anastasia once more the contract and tells her to do her research on dominance and submissives. Anna confesses to him that, okay, fine, I want a relationship with you, but I want the right to renegotiate this little contract. So they meet up at a restaurant, you know, to renegotiate the contract. And then Anastasia's all like, no butt stuff, please. And then Christian's like, sure, okay, contract signed. Let's get down to business. They're doing their thing, their very messed up thing. One thing leads to the next. Anastasia rolls her eyes at Christian. That makes Christian very angry, and then he spanks her. What? Now Anastasia gets shaken by this whole experience and tries to hide her terror by going home. She breaks down in her bed, and guess what happens next? Christian Grey shows up, and they do it again. Okay, then we get like filler for like 60 pages. Now they're meeting Christian's parents. Christian's in a gray suit. Anastasia's not wearing any panties. Just another Friday afternoon. It's a totally normal dinner. Except for the fact that both of them sneak off and do it in the boathouse. Now, all of this lavishness and extravagance is fun and all, but Anastasia's starting to feel conflicted because she feels like this relationship is solely centered around her vajayjay, and she wants, you know, romance. She wants a boyfriend. She wants connection. So, to get away from the madness and think things through, she goes on a trip to Georgia to meet her mom and spend some time with her. The two of them are having fun, you know, they're living it up at the bar, and then Christian shows up out of the blue in Georgia. This man really flew across the country to smash Anna. That evening, they do it again in his hotel room, of course. And then Anna confronts him about his inability to open up and show emotion. They talk it out, but Anna's still really conflicted about this whole relationship. This is where the story just completely breaks down and doesn't really make much sense. She asks Christian to show her how bad the punishment can get. I can't believe I just said that out loud. So he spanks her really hard. She gets terrified, she gets flustered, so she gets up and leaves, and that's how the story ends. But I have to admit, there's never really a dull moment in this book. Right off the bat, the book gets going. We're introduced to Christian on the second page. They do it by the 80th page. If this was the Lord of the Rings, the hobbits would still be eating breakfast and Bilbo would still be planning his birthday party. Now, because of this, the story itself is rather monotonous. There isn't much of a variety of intensity. It's all just kind of the same throughout the whole thing. In fact, I'd go as far to say that there's 480 pages of character introduction and setting, a climax, no rising action, and that's it. There's no conclusion. I don't know if E.L. James wrote this book with the second and third books in mind, because obviously that would change it, and those two books would give her the opportunity to finish this one. However, I'm not going to put it past her that she wrote this one with that much insight. My next criticism is with the characters themselves. It's obvious that we are supposed to sympathize with Christian Grey. We learn throughout the story that his birth mother was a crack addict and abused him as a very young kid, so then he was adopted, and later on, he was sexually abused by an older woman. And because of this, he does have a hard time building relationships with people and intimacy. Now, here's the thing. It's hard for me to have sympathy for this character because he's so freaking annoying. He's so possessive over Anastasia, especially when he's doing all that punishment crap. It's like you want to turn around and slap him across the face. The whole time you're reading this and you're like, Anastasia, get the hell out of there. And that's not even me mentioning the creepy aspect of his character. Anastasia herself describes Christian as a possessive, controlling character. You know, he's a stalker. She literally says that in the book. Before they've even met the second time, Christian already knows her name, her family, her social insurance number, where she works, where she lives. Like, excuse you? Now, as for Anastasia, I mean, what even is there for me to say? Like, it's the common, oh, I'm so ugly, but everybody else tells me I'm beautiful trope. And I mean, E.L. James is working in overtime to try to prove to us how awkward Anastasia is. She has this really weird behavior in the book where she's constantly biting her lip, even in unprovocative situations. Who does that? Like, I'm sorry, but your lips are gonna fall off. Anastasia's also constantly blushing. Like, every 2 sentences, she's flushing red. And I've never seen so many different ways to describe the same thing. I flush. I blush pink. I blush crimson. I'm scarlet! There's a very weird power dynamic between both Christian and Anastasia. It's the common lamb meets lion power dynamic that's very similar in Twilight. So essentially what E.L. James did was take everything that made Twilight mildly problematic and cranked it up to a 10. The other thing that's really hard to kind of wrap your head around in this book is that this relationship really is not just about making the beast with 2 backs, if you know what I mean. Christian just throws money at Anastasia. Literally. You know what this is? You know what this is? This is glorified sugar baby fan fiction. Probably Christian Grey's only redeeming quality is that he's a Britney fan. The last thing I want to say is just a quick thank you to the publisher of this book. I just want to say thank you so much for making the font size 100 and the margins this big, because as someone who was just reading The Lord of the Rings, where they try to fit the whole American Constitution on each page, this is really easy on my eyes, so thank you. I'm gonna end this segment with a dramatic reading of some of my favorite lines out of the book. I flush. I must be the color of the Communist Manifesto. Necrophilia isn't really my thing. Time to face Mr. Confusing. It feels like I've traveled back in time to the 16th century and the Spanish Inquisition. Do you want to play on your Xbox? Coitus interruptus! I'd like to claim your ass. Your ass will need training. I have no ass. I followed my heart and now I have a sore ass. Why hasn't he given me back my panties?
I thought I'd start the second book on my balcony. You know, we're high up, we're far above the ground. 50 Shades of Danger, if you know what I mean. Let's begin, shall we? You know, I really don't think I thought my decision through when I first purchased this book series on Amazon. I really should have listened to that notification that said that my payment had been declined. I'm pretty sure it was God telling me that I really shouldn't pay for this and buy it. I mean, what have I got myself into now? 50 Shades of Confusion, that's for sure. Guess what? We're on page 15, and they're already back together again. What's going on? No, really. 15 pages in? Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that, Miss Anastasia? Do you not want to think that through a little bit more? Good morning. Okay, so here's the thing, here's the situation. I'm already done with this. Like, I'm tired. I want over, you know? So I'm gonna finish this book today. I don't care, I'm eating this whole thing in one sitting, you know, just one bite. It's almost 9 a.m. right now. I'm gonna start. I have about like 440 pages to go, so this is my favorite thing ever. I've come to the park to read, and I've just realized what a terrible mistake I've made. What if somebody walks by and asks me what I'm reading? Am I gonna have to hold up this book like a freaking idiot? That's gonna be the most embarrassing thing I've ever encountered. If that actually happens, I think I'm gonna move to the moon.
You know, while reading the second book, I wondered to myself if there was a soundtrack to this movie, and I found it, you know, on Amazon. I found the vinyl, and I was about to buy it when my subconscious kicked in and told me, Joanna, put your credit card away, you're not spending your money on that crap. Okay, so we're doing the same thing again, you know. little summary, and then some analysis. Chapter 1. Anastasia's at work at her new job. She works at a publishing company. Her boss, Jack Hyde, is extremely creepy, and you can tell that he's kind of trying to make some advances at her. She's 3 days post-Christian, and she's starting to miss him. But not for long, everybody, because of a little something called plot convenience. Everybody say it with me. I'm grateful for plot convenience. So one of Anna's friends is a photographer, and he's having an exhibition, and Anna wants to go. But she needs a ride. You thinking what I'm thinking? We're on the same vibration? It's time to call Christian Grey. And just like that, a need for a ride has brought our two characters together again. That's it. 5 days of conflict, 14 days of misery, and boom, Anastasia's in his helicopter and in his bed once again. So the exhibition goes fine. They talk it out. They go their separate ways. They decide, you know what? We need some time apart. Think things through a bit. So Anna goes to a bar with her work buddies, including Jack. And Jack is making his advances on her, being all creepy and things. But then Christian Grey swoops in and saves her. Anyways, they go home. And they have... twice. Then it's like nonsense for 50 pages. And here is where we're introduced to our first main antagonist. So Layla is one of Christian's ex-submissives. I said that. That's a thing. She misses him. She misses him dearly, and she's jealous of Anastasia. So she's back for revenge. Also, she has a warrant to carry a gun. That's kind of terrifying. Moral of the story is, Layla's seeing red and she's unhinged. So she finds Anastasia outside of her office and just stares at her. And the two of them have a staring contest. And this is where we realize that they both look the same. Connecting the dots here, Christian Grey has a thing for brunettes. Anyways, you guys want to know how much money Christian Grey makes? So literally on the next page from this little encounter, we find out that Christian Grey makes roughly, and I quote, $100,000 an hour. What? So $100,000 an hour. That's $2.4 million a day. This man is making $900 million a year. I'm sorry, but what do you have to do to make that much money? No, really. What job do you have to... What? And not to mention, what will you even do with that much money? What can you buy with $900 million? Could you buy a planet? Actually, that would be pretty cool. I would buy a planet if I had $900 million. Okay, you know what? This is just too much nonsense. Let's get back to the story here. Okay, so we get another 60 pages of unnecessarily gratuitous sex scenes. Oh no, I said it! No! This is where we have our second major conflict of the book. Layla, remember her, Christian's crazy ex with the gun? She's thrown paint on Anna's car and slashed her tires. Good luck having insurance pay for that one. Actually, does Christian Grey have insurance? Does he even need to? He can pay for it. $900 million a year? Yeah, that's frick you money. Okay, so Anastasia's going home from work one day, and she opens the door to her apartment, and boom, Layla is standing in her kitchen with a gun pointed straight at Anastasia. What the hell's happening? This was supposed to be kinky Twilight. So they have 5 minutes of just staring at each other, and Anastasia's slowly just trying to calm the situation down. But no worries, because Christian barges through the door and he's like, Annie, are you okay? So Christian, thankfully, is able to take his crazy ex to the hospital, and because of this, Anastasia gets extremely jealous. So, they bicker and fight. They're being irritating as hell, and all of a sudden, Christian asks Anastasia to marry him. And with that, the Layla conflict is over, and we're just past halfway through the book. So this is when the story takes a bit of a detour. We start to focus more on Anna's creepy boss, Jack Hyde. Remember him? Great, because this is where things are gonna ramp up. So Anna is late to work one day because she stayed up last night partaking in certain physical activity with her boyfriend. And because of this, Jack is extremely angry at her. He's rude, and he makes Anna stay late so that she can catch up on the time she missed in the morning. So it's 7 p.m. Anna's in the kitchen, making a little snack. And Jack walks in, shuts the door behind her, and oh no, I think we all know where this is going. He tries to make a pass at her, and it's really disturbing, but Anna turns around, kicks him in the nuts, and runs like the wind. Now, thankfully, Christian is outside of the building waiting for her, because she's late and he's worried about her. Anastasia tells him what Jack has done to her. He runs back in and hands Jack his ass. At this point, I'm like, holy crap, this is intense. It's like one thing after the other, and it's just over the span of 5 pages. The story just got like 10 times more entertaining. We have action. We have intense character development. For once in the story, Anastasia's finally standing up for herself. Where's the story gonna go from here? Well, it's going down south. Very down south. You know why? Because the very next scene, Christian and Anastasia go back to his room and do butt stuff. Okay, we're in the last 100 pages of this book, everybody. We're in the home stretch. Calm down. So Christian has to go to Portland on a business trip, and he decides to go by helicopter. His helicopter. Stupid rich people business. But don't worry, he's gonna be back that night. That evening, he doesn't show up. Uh-oh, panic mode. So all of a sudden, everybody's tense, everybody's freaking out. Christian's entire family and Anna, they all huddle in his extremely expensive penthouse and just nervously pray to God that he hasn't crashed his helicopter or something like that. 2 hours of anxiety later, Christian walks through the door. A rugged survivor man, surpassing every obstacle that nature has to throw at him. He survived wind and fire. He's not the Revenant. I'm gonna shut up. He's wearing a freaking business suit. So what happened was this. His engine caught on fire. He safely landed the helicopter, and then they hitched a ride with the passing vehicle, and that's it. And that's pretty much how the story ends. That's it. The story's over. No, it's not. The epilogue is 1 page long, and boy, does it set up for the 3rd book. We find out that Jack, Anna's disgraced boss, the one that got beaten to a pulp, turns out he sabotaged Christian's helicopter in an attempt to kill him and extract revenge on Anna. So, let's talk. This book, definitely not as boring as the first one. There was a lot more conflict. It wasn't just so centered on both of the characters. Apart from that, however, similar to the first book, it's rather monotonous. It's all just kind of the same intensity. The moments of action are rather fleeting, and they're not too fleshed out. For instance, the whole Layla conflict, where she's standing in Anastasia's apartment with a gun pointed at her, it lasts maybe like 3/4 of a chapter, and then that's it. There isn't much of a mention of it anymore. Now, because of this, there's just too many things happening in the story. The events, they're not really connected, and they don't flow into each other. That's what it feels like. There's many events that, honestly, if you took them out of the story, nothing would change. Dialogue has gotten much more contrived and awkward in this book. It doesn't seem like the conversations between Anna and Christian are that natural. It's kind of cringy, honestly. There's this thing too, oh my god. Anna keeps on calling Christian 50, as in 50 Shades, because he's 50 Shades of effed up. And I keep on thinking that she's referring to 50 Cent. The other criticism that I have is Anna and Christian as characters in this book become so boring. They do have relationship issues, and yeah, that's like an interesting aspect of the plot, but it's hard to even get involved in something that feels so vapid. I'd like to have sympathy for Anna and her needs, and I'd like to admire Christian and see this like kind of infatuation that everybody seems to have with him, but it's impossible because these characters are just so bland. They're just white bread. The only interesting part about them is that they're both bathing in obscene amounts of cash. What sucks too is that there's so much potential in this book. You learn a lot about Christian's family and his security team in this book, and I ended up liking all of them much more than these two. By far, my favorite character is Taylor, Christian's security guard. He's awesome. I love him. He's badass, he's quiet, he's intelligent. There's this scene where he hooks up with Christian's maid, Mrs. Gale, and I'm just like, yeah! He beats up Jack Hyde. I'm like, oh my god, yes, go! Yes, Taylor, this is it! Kate, Anastasia's best friend, she's so much cooler than Anastasia. Mia, Christian's sister, amazing character. She seems so interesting, and I'd love to know more about her. I don't care about Anastasia. But yeah, other than that, it was okay. Was it better than the first one? I think so. But I think it's just because I was a little bit more entertained by, the conflict in it. It's definitely more dramatic and high energy than the first one. Anyways, time for the third one. Okay, I'm back. I'm giving you the information that we all need and we all want. I don't even have my microphone on. What the hell? So they're on a honeymoon. They're in Europe. Did I tell you they're on a honeymoon? During their honeymoon, we also find out that someone has set fire to the ring! During their honeymoon, we find out that somebody has set fire to Christian's office. Spoiler alert, it's Anna's disgraced boss, Jack Hyde. But unfortunately, Christian Grey has like 2 brain cells and hasn't connected the dots together. Anyways, a couple days later, honeymoon's over, they're back at home. Anna and Christian decide to have lunch with Christian's family. So they go, they eat, they have fun. Christian plays some stuff on a piano and sings, and his parents think he's like the second coming of Christ or something. And then they're driving home. And get ready for some excitement, because they find out that they're actually being followed. Car chase! Ooh! 50 Shades of Fast and Furious! We're in car chase mode. You know, they're hitting 110 miles per hour down the freeway. And then Christian has the wherewithal, thankfully, to think, hey, why don't we hide in that parking lot while our pursuer drives by? And then we'll be safe. So they do that. They hide in the parking lot. And they do it again. Now at this point, Christian has put his brain together and connected the dots and thought, hey, maybe Jack Hyde was the one behind all of this craziness. So he increases security on everybody. He fires a bunch of people. Then, on page 200, Christian's in New York on a business trip. Anastasia's at work. She goes back home. And oh no, the apartment's been broken into by none other than Jack Hyde. Now, thankfully, one of Christian's bodyguards is present and karate chops Jack Hyde, making him unconscious. Christian hears about this, obviously, and he's super angry. So he returns home. This is the kicker, ladies and gents. Anna finds out she's pregnant. Oh no. Christian Grey is not going to be too happy about that. And he's not. When Anastasia breaks the news to him, he throws a temper tantrum, walks out, and gets drunk. Excuse you? It should have worn a condom. So for 1 week, the two of them are mad at each other. They don't talk to each other. Silent treatment's in full effect. Nobody wants to be the one to break the streak. Anna goes to work. She wants to get away from this madness. Anna's working at her desk. She's grinding. All of a sudden, she gets a phone call. Hello? Hi, this is Jack Hyde, your disgraced boss. I want revenge against you and Christian. I've kidnapped Christian's sister, and I'm gonna kill her if you don't bring me $5 million in 2 hours. Do you understand? If you tell anybody, the security guards, Christian, your family, God, I will know and I will kill Mia. Do you understand? So, this is a blackmail story now? So Anna evades her security team, grabs the money, grabs a gun, and runs. So then she meets Jack, gives him the money, but that's not enough for Jack. So he slaps her across the face, she falls to the floor. But then Anna's all like, wait, I have a gun. So she turns around and shoots Jack in the leg. Jack falls to the ground, but then Christian Grey shows up later and he's like, oh no, Anna, you're pregnant and hurt. So then he whisks her off to the hospital and that's it. The end. Story's over. I'm kidding. Jack's arrested. Anna recovers in the hospital. She gives birth. She's fine. In the epilogue, it's 2014. They've had another child and they've moved into a countryside mansion. And that's it. You know, that's the story. You know, the book ends in 2014. So I'm really left wondering, you know, how are they dealing with all this COVID mess? Like, are you quarantining? I hope you know that all that, like, kinky business is not social distancing. So I have to admit that this book was definitely the most boring one out of the series. Despite all that being said, however, I have to admit that this book is probably the most organized one out of the bunch. It's the least monotonous one of the three. You can clearly tell that the book starts down here and ends up here. So in that aspect, the author did a good job with this book. At this point, however, the copulation scenes, they stop shocking you. So honestly, I skipped all of them. There's nothing of value in, I'd say, like 95% of them. It's really just there for filler and for entertainment. But yeah, there isn't really much more to say about this book that hasn't already been said. Most of the criticism that I applied to the other two can be applied to this one too. What do I have to say about all three of them, even though nobody asked? So in conclusion, you know, there's no real overarching message here. I mean, I don't really know what to say. Like, none of these characters are role models. You shouldn't try to be like any of these people. You shouldn't aspire to be like them. The weird romanticizing of borderline abusive relationships and pedophilia are enough to make you run for the hills. Like, if this video didn't depend on it, I would have stopped after the first book. At the end of the day, this book is really only here to serve as an opportunity for readers to indulge in their darkest fantasies. And if that's the case, have at it. You know, if all you want is just, then this is the book for you. But if you're gonna go into it looking for a story, nah, you're better off reading something else. I mean, really, I only know one gray book, and that's Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. So if you want to read an actually good book, you should read that one. It's great. The pacing is amazing. The story's intriguing. I've read it 3 times so far, and you should definitely read it too. You know, I don't know what's worse. The fact that I made this video, or the fact that all this information is now living in my head rent-free. Okay, that's it. You know what? I'm done. This is stupid. This video's probably gonna get demonetized anyway. Okay, goodbye.